Hello everyone, welcome back to ADD Souls. I just figured it'd be fun if I started in a different place each time, so I was running with that. But you didn't miss anything, I just decided to cut some of the run back from the parish towards the forest, because I decided I was going to go after the Covenant after all. So, I'm going to probably unlock the bonfire by the Valley of the Drakes, take out the knight down there, get some Grasscrest shield action going on, all that good stuff. And one of the other things that was off-cambered slightly is I now have 999 wooden bolts, so I've got that going for me, which is nice. And this is a +5 fire crossbow, so it should be dealing some sufficient damage. So, while we're on the way, it's a bit of a trek, I wanted to talk about indie games a little bit, and specifically To the Moon, because last episode, the last time that I recorded, I was about 3/4 of the way through the game, and then, excuse me, just the other night, I actually wound up beating it. And I have to say, I kind of hate games like that. I really kind of do. And why I say that is the controls are terrible, the actual game parts of it, terrible. Like, there's no reason why it couldn't have been just a movie. There's no reason why To the Moon had to have pixel art instead of 3D rendered. I think that a lot of the problems that it had could have been mitigated had it been done in something like the Source Engine, similar to how Dear Esther did it. And when you're comparing games to Dear Esther and you're like, that's the shining example of what a good game is, I don't know. Some people might start to lose some respect for you, but I won't. I actually like Dear Esther a lot more than I thought I would initially. But the reason why I hate games like that, ooh, ouch, took some damage, is they can get away with it. Because I just finished that game, and I have to say, it absolutely blew me away. I was not ready for how much that game was going to have an impact. They spend all this time setting up this story, and they're just setting it up, and then, oh, shouldn't have gone for that kick. That was greedy on my part. And that attack was also pretty greedy, but I know that I've got him low. But yeah, the game spends the first... It's a 3-act story, and it spends all of Act 1 setting up the story, all of Act 2 setting up the story, and half of Act 3 setting up the story. And then the second half of Act 3, after getting, probably about 2.5, 3 hours into the game, it finally switches to payoff mode, and they reveal all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, like, everything that they were talking about just makes sense, and it's so frustrating because it was such a great, such a great story, such good moments. They had awesome characters, great ideas. The plot really came together, but the gameplay was bad. It was terrible, and they'll always get away with it. They always will, because I think in a lot of respects, and I've kind of mused on this before, story and gameplay are basically at ends. You can't have a great story with great gameplay, because if you're building this great narrative, then the player is going to be distracted by any amount of gameplay. If you're introducing elements of having to pay attention and fight enemies, if you make it at any point so that they have to restart a section, then they're just not going to be able to pay the full attention to the story bits. So I think by nature you pretty much have to have the gameplay aspect of a story-driven game to be slightly worse, and we see that a lot with games like To the Moon. A lot of the indie scene, like Dear Esther, barely qualifies as gameplay. Phoenix Wright, it tells an awesome story, but there's no gameplay to it. There's none. Like, literally all you're doing is just point and click, and it's not difficult. It's something that literally anybody could do. There's almost no failure state, and the failure state feels like such a cop-out, because it's not difficult. There's no reason to have it in there. It's just there because it's a game, and a game is defined by having a failure state. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get games who have that really solid gameplay, where it's replayable, tight, just feels good, could play it for 1,000 hours. And those games can't have a story, because if you love the gameplay that much, you love it because you want to sit and play it. you don't want to be listening to the story and things like that. And I know there's a lot of love for the story in Dark Souls, but I think that's where I get into making an exception, because the story of Dark Souls is, it's a lot of lore-based storytelling where you're not really picking it up throughout the course of the gameplay. It's just you're hearing about these things, you're reading in item descriptions about all this kind of stuff, but you're not really, it's not showing you, it's telling you, kind of. I'm just going to crossbow this guy, I think. But yeah, I don't think that you can have both of those things going on at the same time. And a lot of indie games focus on that. And I mentioned Dear Esther, which is a game that, like I said, I really liked that game, but I liked it so much more than I thought I ever would, because it it becomes something. And then I'm trying to think of other games that are similar to that, where it's just indie narrative-based goodness. And it's a good genre, but man, just I like having a little bit more gameplay to my gameplay. Oh, Papa EEO, that's another one. It was really obvious what they were doing. The whole game just serves as an allegory, and from the perspective of like the developer, kind of creating. It feels wrong to say like a love letter, because for anyone who doesn't know, the game is about his relationship with his alcoholic father, the game's developer, or at least I assume. They give it a little forward, saying like, this is about my alcoholic dad, I'm sorry for anyone who has had to suffer through similar experiences. So there's really no debating it, and then the gameplay is also very centered around that, and it's kind of very transparent in what it's going for. And the world they create just oozes out this whimsical nature to it. Like, you've got really cute buildings that are kind of walking, and it's like Howl's Moving Castle, from what I've heard of it. Never actually seen Howl's Moving Castle, which is probably a crime. But then you get to the gameplay, and the actual gameplay and puzzles are just there. It's not presented as anything more than just an interactive story, which is fine, but it's just weird to have it, I don't know, as a game. I know that's where a lot of people struggle with things like that, is that you get into the, interactive story piece of it. And, if you're playing, like, Dear Esther is a game that I would never want to go back to. I would never want to play it, like, maybe not want. Maybe, once in a while I'll get the urge to play it, but I never need to play it again, because I never need to go back and remember what the controls were and walk through again and hear it. I've already heard it, thought about it, looked up things online for it. But it's so tempting to use all of those souls right now. But where was I? Dear Esther. Oh yeah, I don't ever want to go back and revisit it. So it's basically a one-time experience. So from a game, you look at something that you could get on, say, Xbox Live Arcade. You look at Castle Crashers, which I think was either 15 or 20 bucks, which I think puts it at a price point similar to Dear Esther. I got it in the Indie Humby, the Humble Bundle Indie Sale. One of those that came with, what else did it come with? Came with Thomas Was Alone, which, oh man, that is a fantastic example of what I was just talking about. But you have to change your frame of mind when you think about games, because Castle Crashers, you could play that for, you could probably squeeze in 20, 30 hours maybe, especially if you had a good group of friends with it, or if you had a different group of friends. They're all the different characters, mechanics are fun, each character behaves differently. There's a lot of gameplay, there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of different builds that you can create, kind of similar to Dark Souls, but not quite. Like there's, I think, 3 different stats that you can pour levels into that affects how you deal damage. So it's got all that going for it. So you can get 30 hours out of it, and then you go, oh, Dear Esther, how much can you get out of that? And it's like 2 hours. And so people would go, well, why should I pay, $30 to get, or not 30, but I was thinking of hours. It's hard to concentrate on this game and do literally anything else, but I'm trying my best here. Yeah, it's really hard to focus, which wasn't what I was talking about, ironically enough. Oops, found a tree guy. I am so headed the wrong direction, I'm pretty sure. I am almost positive that I want to go the other way, but it's not worth it to die to these guys. So yeah, when you play a game like Dear Esther, you can't be thinking of the value that you're getting for the money. You're thinking of the experience that you're getting for what you're paying. And I think in the case of like a movie, something like that, yeah, it's worth it. Everybody would put down $10 to go and see what you call it, Avengers in theaters. You know, a lot of people did. A lot of people really enjoyed that. You get to talk about people. You get to be involved in the zeitgeist for it, which I really like that term. Um, and I never really knew what it was until I thought about, wee, this is going to be so easy with this. Pew. um, Never really thought about the term zeitgeist. Like, it never made sense until I translated it, where it is Geist being ghost and Zeit being, I think, time. So it is just the spirit of the times. Just a fancy way of saying what's in culture, what's in vogue, what's popular, that kind of stuff. So you get to be involved with it. You get to be part of the culture of people who can talk about it and share your experience. And that alone is worth the asking price of an experience like that. Not necessarily a game, not necessarily the gameplay, but being able to say that you did it, you know? So I think that Dear Esther, definitely worth it. To the Moon, oh my gosh. And I only paid, I think it was $3 for To the Moon, which in my mind that price point is about right. But seriously, if you paid, I'm not gonna switch bolts. I like to keep them. You know, if you paid $10, $15 for To the Moon, you still get a good 4-hour story out of it. They really build it. They build it incredibly well. If it was a TV show, if it was a mini-series on AMC, and at the end of it, in the last 2 episodes, you just bawl your eyes out, totally worth the purchase. Not saying that's what happened, but it might have. Because it was good. And then, you know, like Breaking Bad and like Walking Dead, you can go into work the next day and talk to all your gamer friends about it and say, like, oh man, do you remember that part when? Do you remember how this tied in? Do you remember that scene when he was talking to that guy and then this happened? And it's just, it's worth it on that level. But as games, they can't be praised mechanically. And I think that, I don't know, it's very difficult to overlook that when they're classified as games. I think that was my point. I think I did it. But too long didn't read on all that. Dear Esther, fantastic game. To the Moon, amazing game. Um, Thomas Was Alone. Eh. It has a lot of personality, and it's interesting what it can make you think of dots. It reminds me of that old IKEA commercial where it was just like with the lamp crying outside, and people are like, "Why are you so sad? It's just a lamp. It doesn't have feelings." It's like that. But the gameplay in Thomas Was Alone, it's a puzzle game, and in that respect, like, it does a few interesting things, like you play as different blocks and they have different heights that they can jump. So you have to kind of figure out which order of the blocks to use, and you cycle through one at a time. But they make you do the same puzzle over and over again, and it just sucks. It sucks the life out of it. Because you're having fun, you're like, yeah, I'm doing things, and then all of a sudden it's just like, okay, now I have to do this 14 more times, and like, you want to hear the rest of the story, but you really, I don't want to use the term suffer through gameplay, but you suffer through some gameplay on that one. So, that was the indie game extravaganza for the night, just because I'd finished that up. I guess I can actually get back to talking about Dark Souls now. As everyone's probably figured out, I am just, pew, oh, suck on that, small mushroom child. I'm just going to get the Forest Hunter's Covenant so I can talk to Shiva and get his bodyguard and himself to move down to Blighttown so I can pick up the ring and the round iron shield, because I think I'm going to use both of those. They're going to be maybe not instrumental, but definitely good in my playthrough. So running over to get those. These mushroom beds will absolutely wreck me if they touch me, so yet again, very glad that I have this crossbow. It's actually been proven to be excuse me, quite nice in several situations. It's really, I don't want to say it's an extraordinarily viable build, because pretty much, if I had to rank like easy, medium, hard difficulties in Dark Souls, I think the hardest difficulty would definitely be a melee based class, especially if you're using something like Dagger or I guess Dex focus. The next up would be Strength, maybe with a tank kind of build going, because my cat just came up to say hello to me. But yeah, like tank-based builds, they're not as bad. Generally, you can kind of cheese your way through boss fights, but as soon as you get into projectiles, then it starts becoming a little bit easier. Like, I think they're probably the medium difficulty, because as you can see, you can use them for cheesing enemies like this, basically cheating the aggro system, so that way you can get a single pull of an enemy, or just a continuous pull where you don't have to worry about taking damage at all. Like, fighting these guys with a melee weapon would be a little bit of a nightmare. And I guess, actually, come to think of it, the bows might even be a little bit easier than the magic system, which I was going to rate as basically the easy way of doing this game, because the magic has such raw power to it. Like, you can do a ton of damage. Basically, you just have to build your character towards it. Yay, Enchanted Ember. Yeah, you can do a ton of damage, and it doesn't really cost... There's not a lot of risk associated with it. The only thing is it's a little bit slow, and it doesn't work in PvP as well. So, oh no, anything but that. I don't care about PvP at all in the Souls series. So, I don't know. If I were to play a game blind, I'd probably go for a tank build, get a little bit of dex so that you can build into a bow. And I am so sorry because I always forget, okay, good. I always forget which way to go to get to the Force Hunter's Covenant, around the back way. And I am just crap for fighting the actual guards of it, so, yeah. We'll sneak around here, sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. Pick up some stone armor. There we go. I don't know if that will ever come in handy, based on how we want to build this playstyle, but we'll see. And then... around here. Yes. And yes. There we go. Yay, we're part of a covenant. Oh.
And here.
Yay.
If mine senses reveal intruders, fend I shall thou but thou the clan is thine own family. To thine kinsman forever darest not it.
Sorry, moderate distractions. And then I believe that you have to talk to him.
I've heard all about you. I'm last assist, except fight only. That's it. Don't worry. Great to have you.
And to you, good sir. By which I mean I'm going to kill you and take that shield. It's a good looking shield. Good looking shield, son. I want it. So, let's not give fate any chances here. Just go ahead and bone our way back, so that way we can spend all of these tasty, tasty souls on some more endurance. All the way up to an 87 equipment load, which still means that we're at like 22.5, I think. And that's actually only 3 pounds down. So that means that this... Yay, we can do fast rolls with this. And this way, I believe, is going to be the fastest to get us to Blighttown. So we'll go ahead and see if we can't navigate past the single Drake. Actually, it would be 2 Drakes that we're going to have to run by, but whatever. I'm actually pretty excited when I get to move on. This is going to be my last recorded playthrough, and probably my last playthrough for a while. I might come back to this game for Dark Souls. But I've got, I think, 3 different series that I have a full trilogy of in my Steam backlog, and I am ready and rearing to go on those. I've got all of Saints Row that came out for PC, so 2, 3, and 4. I've got all of the Fear games on PC, 1, 2, and 3, and the Perseus Mandate and Extraction Point. And the Fear games were some of my favorite games, and they have aged so poorly, at least the initial ones have. So I'm curious to see kind of how those hold up. I know in my mind's eye I think very highly of them, but I'm curious to go through. And we are going to cheese this dragon, just like we'll cheese the dragon that is in the painted world of Ariamis. Because this is all you have to do. As long as you have a bow, he literally cannot touch you. And I think that I had one other series of games that I had a full trilogy for, but I can't remember what it is. But yeah, it'll be good. I've actually been making a pretty good dent in my backlog. I'm pretty happy about that. I still have the Sniper Elite V2 to finish up. Getting around to that should be fun. Thomas was alone. I do actually want to complete, so yeah, what I was saying before, haven't actually finished it, so please don't yell at me about it. This is going to be like a free 2,000 souls, which is amazing. Yeah, 3,000, plus some more soul items, which I should be using more often to level up. So maybe when I hit Blighttown, I'll go ahead and do that. Because we're going to need all the help we can get against Shiva, I've got a feeling. He has definitely kicked my butt 1 or 2 times before, because fighting against 2 people is no fun. So... But I think, and I could be terribly wrong on this, that all we have to do is absolve ourselves of sin, join the Covenant, and talk to him again, if for whatever reason we actually don't wind up killing him. So, shouldn't be too bad. Either way. Huh. It's very strange. I'm sure that you can't see it because of YouTube. It'll cut it out. But all of a sudden my recording decided to, instead of being capped at 30, it decided to cap at 60 for a little while. So I got some really smooth frame rates, and just outside of Blighttown, it's like it knows. It's like, oh, Blighttown's coming up? Hold on, let me give you some good frames, so that way when I drop all these other guys, you'll really be feeling it. Seeing that leech alive is so weird. I usually kill it every chance I get. Speaking of which... yeah, there is a lot of room for improvement on the this Vaihanda. Makes me kind of sad that I'm turning it into a lightning weapon instead of going for a quality build. But that's okay. Because elemental damage is awesome. And I thought, let's see, I know that I had something to say on that, but I don't remember quite what it was. Oh, I was a little close to the edge, so I wanted to reposition. But basically, oh no, because Quelaag is fire, I'm going to be switching one of my bows that I get from the Dragon in the Depths over to either magic or divine, and it actually winds up being more or less the same. It's just with divine bow, you wind up getting the skeleton killing properties, which may come in handy later, but depending on enemy resistances and all that kind of stuff, so I don't know, it seems like it may just wind up being a mixed bag, but something to consider in the future. And then the sniper bow we also get a choice on, and again, it doesn't really matter how we build it because it doesn't really have an effect either way. I did some research, so that way nobody can call me out for being unresearched. Or at least if they do, they have slightly less ground to stand on, but they probably will. Hope this is enough to get me to the next level. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. Alright, so let's pop another point into endurance. And it should put us at 22 pounds that we can equip for a max burden. So if we... nope, don't have anything that's like 0.8. So we've got fast rolls, we've got a crossbow, we have our rusted iron ring on. So we should be good to try and take out Shiva. And actually, definitely want to take out these bug monsters first. For now obvious reasons. I don't know if they're necessarily fire resistant, but that'd be an interesting thing to know. Yes, they are. This is why we can't have nice things, bug monsters. Alright, so now we've got Shiva.
Hello, strict but white,
And I don't think that we necessarily need anything from him. Yeah. So, We'll learn the facepalm gesture. Heal up a little bit right before things start to get heated.
You have some guts to turn on us. Have a look at my sword. It's the last thing you'll see.
We're having a long sword battle here. This is some Final Fantasy action going down.
You poor fool.
Alright, so Shiva's down. So that's good news because that gives us the shield that we'll be using for the rest of the playthrough. The Iron Round Shield, which is ridiculously good. It is absolutely insane how good that shield is. Alright, so can he actually escape from there? Nope. I think he's just stuck in an idiot loop. So let's abuse this, shall we? Here we go. So, maybe a little bit more lucky than good, as they say. But, I take my victories where I can get them. Alright, and I forget what the weight of the Iron Round Shield is. Let's look into that. It is 5 pounds, naturally, so it's a little bit heavier, which cuts out our rolls. So I think I'm going to do this, that, and this for the moment. See, still too heavy. Just this for the moment then. Still too heavy. What are we at? 22? Oh wow, just barely. Okay. So I'll kill 1 or 2 guys here. Oh, right, that won't work. Just to get the last few souls for level. I think I should only need about 400 more. Level up endurance by a point. And that should make it so that with our current gear, we can do a little bit more agile rolling. And then I want to say that that's enough, but I honestly forget where it is. But if it's not, there are guys right outside. It's not a big deal. No worry. Yeah, okay, I need 66. 67 to be safe, naturally. Wow. I spent 150 bolts this time. Started with max. It's kind of funny. And the reason for anyone who doesn't know why the Iron Round Shield, or whatever it's called, is so good, at least in my opinion, is because it has a special property that you don't really notice. It doesn't say anything about it, but it has incredibly high deflection, and that's going to become very important against the Capra Demon. All of his attacks will not only be stopped by the shield, but it will also cause his attacks to bounce off of the shield. And this is very nice when fighting the Capra Demon, and very bad when fighting the Knights in Anor Londo. Because the Knights in Anor Londo are actually easier to parry when you can, when their attacks don't get deflected. But we have our points. We have 20 endurance, 90 equipment load, so we should have a fast roll, which we do. Which means that when we equip our Dark Wood Grain Ring, that we get ninja flips. So we have ninja flips, we have a, Zweihanda, and we have a bow. So we need a little bit more because this bow is the lightest of the 3 bows, but that's going to be basically what we're going to be doing for the rest of the game. So with that, actually, I'm just going to rest at the bonfire, and I will see you guys next time.